Most people consider Japan another world, which will always remain closed to our mentality. People believe that its state and its tradition are the result of a mentality that no bridge can connect to Western man's way of thinking. To a large extent, this is a mistake. Wherever there exists a traditional culture in the highest sense of this term, there is always something superior, something potentially universal, which in its diverse elements reveals the different expressions of a unique content. Japan is among the most traditional cultures that still exist. The political and national ideal of Japan, Yamato Damashi, can be summed up in calling the imperial tradition divine. Following the command, I shall descend from heaven, the patriarch of the Japanese sovereign says in the Kojiki, the chief text of Japanese tradition. These sovereigns form a unity with the solar goddess Amaterasu Omikami on the basis of an uninterrupted dynastic and spiritual tradition. Japan is the only contemporary state that finds itself knowing nothing of the problem of the reconciliation between the national and racial idea and the religious idea. In Japan, religion is politics and politics is religion. The Japanese religion, Shintoism, has suigi as its cornerstone, that is, absolute fidelity to the emperor, the exact equivalent of what was fides in the Roman Empire. Since this is the only reference point for the piety of the individual, the result is that every virtue or act of individual or collective life ends with justifying itself in terms of fides. Respect for parents, solidarity between relatives or friends, the practice of virtue, respect for the laws, harmony between spouses with a proper hierarchical relationship between the sexes, productivity in the field of industry and the economy, work and study, forming one's own character, and the defense of blood and race. All this is fidelity. The Japanese sovereign possesses a supernatural character, even more than for his descent, which is considered non-human and reaches back to prehistoric epochs, and also because of the triple treasure, Sanshu no Jinki, emblems of divine power, mirror, pearl, and sword. The mirror, which is called Yata no Kogami, emphasizes identity. The mirror invites the sovereign to acknowledge his true image. The second symbol, the sword, has two aspects to consider. The first, exoteric one, corresponds to the meaning that the sword is an emblem of temporal power. Moreover, in Japan it is a reference to the ability to discriminate between good and evil, real and unreal, so as to be able to be a just judge on earth. The second aspect of the symbolism, a more secret and esoteric aspect, refers to a myth, saying the sword was used to kill the dragon with 8 heads, of the brother of the solar goddess. As for the symbol of the stone, or pearl of stone, Tama, from the outer viewpoint it refers to Buddhism and the mystic pearl of compassion. The Japanese word Tama, however, also means soul, or divinity, and the symbolism of the celestial stone. The Imperial dynasty is considered as the original stock from which arise or derive the principal lines of the Japanese race. Thus, the nation is conceived as a single large family, or gens in the ancient sense. Naturally, this sentiment of duty of blood is especially alive among the elements closest to the imperial summit, that is, in the bushi or samurai, who constitute the warrior or feudal class, conceived as the flower of Japanese society according to ancient proverb. What the cherry is among the blossoms, so is the bushi among men. The doctrine of Bushido, like the doctrine of the old Western chivalry, does not concern only the profession of arms, but involves the entire tenor of life. An essential element of the way of the Bushi is an interiorizing element of heroism and force, the victory over one's own nature, that is fundamental for refinement, nobility, style, and beauty, as all this is conceived in Japan. Starting from the center, which is constituted by the dynasty, and radiating outwards through veins constituted by the great Bushi families, the transcendent conception of the Japanese state will reach all the remaining elements of the nation, and then, step by step, permeate the entire national society with the same meaning. All Japan therefore feels itself as the bearer of a divine force and as a unique race, which has a universal mission that is irreducible to any demand of what is only material. Among the verses that every Japanese student learns in today's schools are found, for instance, the following. Japan is the only divine land. The Japanese people are the only divine people, and therefore Japan can be the light of the world. Here we face a myth, a force idea, intended to create a high degree of tension in a people. The same sentiment is found wherever a people has been pervaded by a metaphysical sense through which, behind the human forces that belong to it, forces from on high are acting. Japan's central nucleus is the idea of a struggle that is justified not only by ambitions of material power and political reason, but also by an idea, a mission, and a vocation of spiritual dominion, and basically by a transcendent reference point. Japan can find itself with us. Those who knew how to preserve the spirit from remote epochs can join together to fight beside those who are today trying to reconquer it, after having overcome the decadence, disintegration, and darkness that has characterized the pseudo-civilization of the modern world.